You know what, Sandra?
What?
I like big books. I cannot lie.
Okay.
Welcome back to Two Pentecostals and a Microphone. I'm co-host Bryce Kyle. You know, us here at Two Pentecostals love to read. And we feel our listeners should as well. So in today's episode, we are blessing all of you with our favorite, where we discuss our favorite books. We give you some recommendations and currently what we're reading right now. So I hope you enjoy this wonderful episode all about books. I do want to mention that we have some very cool episodes coming up, specifically some interview episodes that feature some published authors. So I hope that you all look forward to those, as both Jareth and I are very excited to release those episodes in the coming weeks. So, without further ado, let's begin this lighthearted episode, but no less deep episode on our favorite books.
We just got back from a trip to Nashville, Tennessee, that is. And I wanted to get a lot of reading done while I was gone. And also took the Nintendo Switch, and I was going to play some games. I didn't turn on the Switch once, and I didn't read anything at all. I don't think I read anything while I was there. We were there like 5 days.
Yeah. Well, Nashville, there's a lot of cool stuff to do, so.
It was a lot of fun.
I don't think I do much reading either.
Basically, all we did there was eat.
Yeah, you seem to be having a pretty productive... talk about your new blog a little bit. Yeah.
So I started a new blog called Eating Dangerously, which you can find on my website, jaredthmize.com. So there's that. So I'm not saying I feel obligated to eat a lot, but I kind of do.
Yeah. Well,
I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
I have to admit. I mean, I think people can tell that if they've seen me in person, but
unfortunately, I enjoy it as well. And I have to make changes or
you just start a food blog. This basically gave me an excuse, you know.
True.
Yeah. So we ate a lot of good stuff while we were in Nashville, but we did have fun.
It's not to get sidetracked, but that burger you had, I think the Pharmacy?
Republic. Oh, the Pharmacy.
Yeah.
The Pharmacy, if you're in Nashville. And okay, so I'll just give food recommendations, I guess, to start this off. If you're in Nashville, I would definitely go to Burger. I'm a burger guy, though. Burger Republic in the Gulch, or there's a couple more in town, but excellent. Man, it was good. But go to the Pharmacy for sure. It's pretty hipster kind of joint, but it's really good.
It looked delicious.
It was absolutely delicious. Yeah. And there's a place, I haven't written about this yet, but there's a place down, also in the Gulch, near downtown, called Biscuit Love, and it's amazing. I would honestly put my breakfast sandwich in my top 5 things I've ever eaten.
Wow.
I think I'm going to write about this soon on the blog, and it wasn't so much even the biscuit. I mean, the biscuit was good, everything was good, but it was the bacon jam. Okay, if you didn't know. You can make jam out of bacon. Right. You don't just have to make jam out of fruits. That's amazing. This is a game changer. I think bacon jam should be on everything.
Wow.
Really did. It really stepped it up.
It's probably not to the same level as what you had, but Cracker Barrel actually has a maple bacon jam.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on one of their burgers.
Well, that might change it. No, I'm not a big fan of their biscuits.
Right.
Well, I want a burger, though.
Yeah, it's on a burger. But it's probably nowhere near as what you had. But
well, yeah, probably not. But that place was kind of expensive too. It's definitely worth the trip again. If you're down there, go. Just go everywhere. Everybody should always go there, and they should eat, and they should listen to music. And we didn't get a chance. I wanted to go listen to some music so bad. I talked myself out of it every time. I I was going to go see August Burns Red, but that was something I was going to have to do on my own.
Right.
My wife wasn't going to go with me. My parents definitely weren't going to go. But their drummer is my favorite drummer. But I talked myself out of it. And Vince Gill and the Time Jumpers, which if you're not familiar with them, you know, everybody knows Vince Gill is a great guitarist, probably.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the Time Jumpers are basically country swing, kind of?
Yeah, kind of like the old Texas
swing. Yeah, Texas swing, I guess. Yeah, kind of like Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys kind of vibe. And they're just all incredible musicians. Anyway, they play every Monday, I think, in Nashville. Of course, you can hear about any kind of music you want any night of the week in Nashville. But we went the whole time and did not listen to any music. I did not read. I didn't play any games. But we had a good time. That's
good. I'm really glad you had a good time.
I did back into something. Backing out of the driveway, I was explaining to Anne how lucky she was to have me there because she wouldn't be able to back out of the driveway because it's so tight, which is true.
Right.
But about that time, I backed into something and busted a taillight. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. That was
on your own car? Or?
Yeah, my car.
Yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't my parents' car. That would have been a little awkward.
It's always the worst timing because it's like when you're explaining how good you are at something.
I was literally in the middle of that. But that's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I guess God's always keeping you humble.
That's exactly what it was, I think, because I was really proud of myself, you know, parallel parking in downtown and backing in and out of those tight spots. And there it goes. So
you don't even know how lucky you are to have me, you know? And then,
I know. That's exactly what I was saying. I mean, I was pouring it on pretty thick.
That's funny.
And that happened. Oh boy. So it's been fun, but it's been an interesting week trying to get back in the groove at work now.
Yeah, it's always hard to come back from vacations and
it is. It was too short.
Swing, you know. And now, you know, I love Nashville, and I guess we are kind of fortunate in our proximity to Nashville.
We are. We can drive down there and back in a day if you really want to.
A few hours, and so it's not too bad. But
well, I guess I can talk about it now. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast. Yeah. I did have an interview with Ramsey Solutions in Nashville, Dave Ramsey's company, and I made it to the third round of interviews, didn't get the job. So I was all hyped up, and I thought we were going to be moving to Nashville.
Yeah. Because,
you know, despite the things I love about my current situation, job, church, everything considered, we love Nashville. Right. So I was kind of pumped about that. Didn't work out, so we're going to be in Seymour for the foreseeable future, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. We prayed for God's will, you know, like either open the door or close it.
Right.
And it closed.
Yeah. Well, so, maybe something else will.
Yeah, I think when the timing's right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to push it.
I've always wanted to move there too, but just never got the chance. But maybe one day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in the right timing, I think.
Yeah.
I think I could go there probably and work at like Starbucks or something, and you know I could get a job. But I
if I didn't have a wife,
really, yeah. I mean, if I just needed a part-time income, or if we only needed one income, right? You know, we could do it. Because the thing is, I could, you know, if we both were going to work, we could take a lower-paying jobs and go and do it, and probably be okay. But then we wouldn't have anybody to watch Aiden. You know?
Yeah.
If Ann stays home with him, I got to have a higher-paying job. It's just it has to work out. So I don't want to push it. We did see Ramsey Solutions office, though. I was actually at the Cool Springs Galleria Mall in Brentwood, and Cool Springs, Brentwood, same thing. I was telling Ann, I was like, Ramsey Solutions is around here somewhere. I just don't know where. We should drive by. And I look up, and it's literally right in front of me.
Wow.
So I'm pretty sure that the truck in the reserve spot in the corner was Dave Ramsey's truck. It was a Roush F-150.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Probably.
It was pretty sweet.
He was probably recording an episode.
Oh, he probably was. I should have went in.
Yeah.
But everybody was in a hurry. We were hungry, so. Yeah.
Well.
You know, it is what it is. But when I'm debt-free one of these days, I'll go and do the debt-free scream or whatever in his office. But anyway, so we want to really talk about books, right? This episode?
Right. We just wanted to do something kind of lighthearted. We've had a few heavy episodes lately.
Yeah.
And just do something a little more lighthearted, I guess.
Yeah, so we want to talk about books that we've been reading, and also books we recommend for our audience.
Yeah, and that's kind of influenced our ministries and our just our lives in general, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be moving. I think we're going to be moving pretty soon into a smaller place, and I'm trying to downsize, and I had to go through my bookshelf the other night and really weed out,
Really?
I took 3 boxes of stuff last night to half price books, and it was painful. It was a painful experience.
Yeah, I have a hard time doing that. Every once in a while I get into I need to, get rid of some books, or, as I'm saying this, I'm looking at 4 or 5 boxes that are filled to the brim of records.
Yeah, okay. I went through my records too, and I'm having a hard time with that. It's like, what do I get rid of? And CDs, I've got some stacks, but it's a hard thing. But
I get rid of books, but I get rid of them so I can just buy more.
That's pretty much what I've done.
Yeah,
I have 5 bookshelves, right? The big ones, and they're all full. So I'm trying to really narrow it down. I've got a lot of commentaries and stuff that my dad actually gave me that I'm gonna give back because I don't have room for them.
Right.
And they've come in really handy. I've used it, especially the Matthew Henry commentary. I've used it a lot over the years, but now I have it on my phone. So
that's kind of like, I wasn't on board with the whole digital books and audio, not audiobooks, but ebooks. And but I bought a Kindle, or got a Kindle a few years ago, and I just started buying a book every once in a while and reading it, and I've actually kind of enjoyed it. It's not the same experience.
It took me a while, right?
But it's like, just having, I don't know, it's neat to me, even though if I need to go back and reference something really quick. A lot of times if I need to quote something from a book, I'm having to look through it.
Oh, yeah, you
try
gotta
to find
dig
it. Because I'm not one to just leave a mark in it and put the page number and stuff.
I wish I could do it sometimes.
Yeah.
I really do. I wish I could highlight and mark. I just can't bring myself to do it.
A lot of times I feel, sometimes I will highlight and leave notes or something, but a lot of times it's like, why am I really doing it? I do want to remember it, but it's like I'm not going to go back and just reference it all the time.
Right.
But if I don't remember something, then what's it worth remembering, I guess? But,
well, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I used to take that approach with song lyrics. I would work on a song for however long. Sometimes it's, how it is. Sometimes it's real quick. Sometimes it just takes a while.
Right.
But I would stew on something for a while. And I kind of had this policy, if I forgot it before I wrote it down, in those couple weeks maybe, or a few weeks, then it wasn't worth writing anyway.
Yeah.
If it stuck with me, must have been pretty decent. So I don't know. I kind of do that with books too, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, so having the digital books, having the ebooks, I can reference something really quick. And,
it is really handy for that.
Yeah. And I do enjoy that. And I've read novels on there too that I like. And
yeah, I've read several books on my Kindle since I've gotten it.
It's kind of, as a person who loves to read and I try to read a book a week. That's my goal every week.
That's my goal too. You did a lot better than I did last year, but
yeah. And there's some weeks that are just, I struggle with that because of time, but a lot of, I do fairly well with it, but it's nice having this huge library in just one
right in your hand,
one device,
right?
Yeah, and so it's like I don't need to carry around several books, and
exactly.
Because a lot of times I'm actually reading maybe 3 or 4 or 5 books at a time.
That's how I am too. I'm the same way, and I hate taking books. I travel a lot for work, and I hate taking books on the road with me, because if I take them on the road for 1 week-long trip, for example, come back, the book is literally destroyed from being tossed around in the truck and whatever.
Right.
And then I just want to throw it away because I'm like, that looks really terrible. I don't even want to put it on the back of my bookshelf. I don't know. I'm just weird like that.
Yeah.
So I try to keep my books in really good condition, which means that I only read them when I'm at home. So it takes me a long time to read a physical book.
Okay.
I think I'm a lot quicker when I just do it on the Kindle.
Sure.
So
For going back to actual physical books, I do enjoy having them. There's nothing that compares to that experience in my mind.
No, there's not. It's it's like listening to a vinyl record.
Yeah.
As opposed to a digital audio file. It's like, it's tactile. It feels different. It smells different. Like the whole experience is different.
Right. And yeah, you're, like you just said, you're using most of your senses.
Right.
You know, you're seeing, you're smelling. The smell of an old book is...
It is. It's a special thing that you... Yeah. Really, honestly, it is.
And so it puts me in a good place. And I have a funny story. I've loved books pretty much my whole life. And, you know, me and my littlest brother, we share the love of books. My other brother really doesn't care. And my mom never really got into reading too much. So that was just me and my brother kind of went back and forth with books a lot. But I remember in third grade, you know, we celebrate like 100th day of school. Right. So we do like a big deal about it. And people bring in, I remember like someone brought in like a picture that they put 100 star stickers on or something like that. It's just some random. Yeah.
I think Aiden took 100 Hot Wheels one year.
Okay. So yeah, Hot Wheels. That seems...
They're fairly small, manageable. Yeah. You took 100 books.
I took 100 books.
How did I see that coming? Oh my gosh.
It was funny because in third grade, I didn't own 100 books. I actually borrowed some from my mom. Like she had textbooks, like because she was in college at the time.
Oh my goodness.
I took what books I had plus her books, and
wow,
I ended up with 100. I ended up carrying like 3 or 4 trash bags full.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did you get them into the school? I mean,
it was amazing.
Wow.
I just remember getting glares from my teacher the entire day.
You like built a book fort around your desk?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But
that's great.
It's one of my favorite
I can totally
memories,
see that though.
And we had like a convo that day too in the gym, but we weren't going back to. It was like the end of the day,
right?
And we weren't going back to class, so I had to carry all those books with me to the gym and sit on the bleachers and.
That's awesome. Yeah. Take up like 10 seats.
It was hilarious.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
My love of books got me into trouble too, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I was always really particular. I guess I'm still kind of like this. You know, I was always really particular about my books. And I remember when I was a kid, this is weird. It sticks out to me still. I was probably in kindergarten. And I had a paperback. I don't know if you remember these or not. It was like a square, like the size of a 45 record, I guess, paperback Star Wars book with something about C-3PO. I don't really remember, but it had a 45 RPM record in the back.
Okay.
And I love that thing. I would read the book, I'd listen to the record, and then I'd read it again, and I'd listen to the record again. And one of my friends came over, and I was like, no, you can't touch my books, whatever. Well, he finally got a hold of that one. And he broke the record.
Oh my God.
And I knew it was going to happen. Like, I know if I let this kid get his grubby little hands on my book, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he broke the record. And I don't think I ever forgave him. So, anyway, if you're listening to this, his name's Nathan. Okay. He's not listening. But anyway, I forgive you.
All right.
Anyway.
That's sad.
I've carried that baggage for a long time.
Yeah. I'm glad that you can finally let go of it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the podcast.
Yeah.
That's what we're all about here.
That is true. Yeah. Confession.
Yeah.
Letting it go. Forgiveness.
Right.
Amen.
Yeah.
So what books have you been reading?
Well, this year let me look at my Goodreads.
Oh, yeah, look on your Goodreads. I am way behind. Honestly, I got a new iPhone like a month ago, and I just now downloaded the app again, and I realized I don't have anything to update. I've done terribly this year.
Right.
I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, but I've not been reading. I've got to catch up.
Let's see. I'm currently at 13 books so far this year.
For the year? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay. I finished one.
Okay.
Which I am not even going to recommend. It was the ideas were good. I feel like, but I don't know, it just wasn't executed very well. So I wouldn't even recommend it. But anyway.
I will, to be fair, a couple of these were carryovers from late December.
Okay, well,
that
mine was.
finished in January.
Right.
So to be fair.
No,
but
still, you're way ahead of me.
Yeah. I tell you, I got a book from Christmas from my mom that I absolutely loved, which is autobiography of Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Oh, yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah. And if you're familiar with SCC, I'm sure you know his music, and you may have probably heard about the tragedy of his losing his child. But other than that, you may not know too much about him, but I highly, highly recommend this book. I read it at work, and I was like afraid I was going to get the Holy Ghost reading it while I was sitting at my desk at work, because it was just so amazingly spiritual, and I connected with him, and it deepened my relationship with God, even reading it. So awesome. Every Christian should definitely read this book.
Yeah, I really didn't expect that one. Like, I'm obviously familiar with Stephen Curtis Chapman, but only like a very limited like cross section of his life, I guess. I listened to, what was the one album had Fingerprints of God on it? It was green.
Yeah.
Is that
The Signs of Life?
No, it wasn't Signs of Life. It was I think it might have been after that.
Okay.
Anyway, there was like one album of his.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Is it Speechless or
I'm gonna have to look it up.
Okay.
It's gonna drive me crazy. Anyway, there's like that one, and then there's a live one, which was it The Great Adventure or something? Live or something?
That's the old school.
Yeah, that's pretty old school. So I've listened to a little bit of this stuff, but just not enough to really, I guess, know much about him. So I was kind of surprised when you said that it was a must read. I wasn't. I mean, I knew the tragedy with his daughter.
Yeah,
I'd heard about that, and I guess tragedy manifests a couple ways. You can either get some really powerful perspective from it, or you can get bitter.
Right.
And so I'm not surprised in that way, but I just didn't see it.
Well, I have to say,
it was Speechless.
Yeah,
it was.
I have to say, he was incredibly open and honest, a lot more so than I expected. I know especially, I feel like especially in the cookie cutter type Christian music, the artists tend to have this image, I guess.
It's all about the image.
Yeah.
Well, and that's how the church has been.
Right. He's mainstream Christian music. He's been a staple in Christian music since the 80s.
Right.
And so, and I know a lot of people respect him and look to him as a mentor, I suppose, and kind of I don't want to say like a idol, but he is kind
of a leader. People look up to him.
Right.
Definitely one of the foremost people in his genre.
Sure.
Yeah, probably in the last few decades.
And so there's definitely this image that he has to maintain. And I was, maybe I shouldn't have been shocked by it because, he is human and he's one of us, and he's not anyone special other than he makes gold records every day. But, I was just shocked by how incredibly open and honest he was. He was open about his childhood and the struggles he went through, the relationship he has with his wife, and I mean they've contemplated divorce.
Wow.
When they lost their child.
Wow.
And she suffers from clinical depression, and he talks about that a lot. He talks about the frustrations he had, like dealing with that because he doesn't know how to deal with it, and because
I don't think anybody does. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Right. He wants to fix it, and he can't.
There's not a way to fix it. You just can't do it.
And so he struggles with that, and he's open and honest about that. And to me, it was refreshing.
Yeah, definitely.
And to see a Christian music icon as Stephen Curtis Chapman be that open with it.
Right.
And I highly recommend this book.
Definitely gonna check it out. Actually, I'm gonna put it on my Goodreads as we talk about it.
Right.
What now? That's the thing. When I pick up a Christian book by a mainstream author, what's the name of the book, by the way? Was it?
I think it's called.
I think most of the ones on here that I'm seeing on Goodreads are like
Between Heaven and the Real World.
Okay, because most of these are like songbooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, there I see it. I added it to my want to read. There we go. So. When I pick up, I don't know about you, but when I pick up a Christian book or a book by a Christian author, unfortunately, one of the first things that goes through my head is this going to be like every other Christian book I've read in my life?
Sure.
Because, and this is my problem with mainstream Christian music, is so often it is just the same old rehashed,
Yeah.
And, how many ways, like worship music, we make jokes about it, but like worship music, you basically just take the same 10 words and just kind of throw them up in the air and piece them together and you got a new worship song.
Right.
But mainstream Christian music's been that way for a long time. It's very cookie cutter. It's probably worse than radio, like country radio, in that it's like, there's a formula.
Right. And it's targeted at certain group of people.
Yeah. And 35-year-old moms.
Yeah.
Soccer moms. Which is probably why I don't relate to it all that much.
Right.
And if you're into it, it's fine. It is what it is, but it's very much built for, but it's money is the issue. It's targeted, to make money. It's an industry. I get it. But Christian books, when I sit down and read a book, I want something honest. That's why I'm really want to read this book.
Yeah. I think too, I have that feeling when I pick up a Christian living book. So the books they sell at Walmart, or the drugstore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so it's the same format. It's the Joel Osteens and the Joseph Princes.
Every day's a Friday. Yeah, Joseph Prince. He's Filipino or something.
Yeah,
or what is he? I don't know.
Singapore.
He's from Singapore. That's right. I don't know. I watch him. I watch him. Yes, right. Yeah. I watch him on YouTube sometimes, and he'll come up in a search or something, and I'll watch him for a few minutes. I'm just like, okay, whatever. If that's what you need,
sure.
I guess whatever. But it's just not real. This is not real. It's not.
Right. Yeah, it's not. There's nothing real genuine. But everyone, if you know who to look for, I think in writers and pastors that you may like to read that write.
Right.
Like for instance, God, where's this guy?
Oh, Kyle Idleman.
Kyle Idleman. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's technically a mainstream Christian living writer.
Yeah, pretty mainstream, really.
Yeah.
But he's a teaching pastor at, what is it, Southeast Christian Church?
Yeah, in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah. And I think because he's the teaching pastor, he takes that approach, that teaching approach in his books. I really like it. I've liked everything of his I've read pretty much.
Mm-hmm. I've read Not a Fan and God's War. I haven't read anything else from him.
Yeah,
but
I've read those two multiple times. Trying to think, there was another one of his I read, and I don't remember what the name of. The End of Me. I think was the one. He's got a couple others. Guys like him. Honestly, even and I've not read. I preface this every time I bring him up. I want to like put a caveat out there because I don't want to get excommunicated or something. But I've read. You recommended Velvet Elvis by Rob Bell. Yeah. I've not read any of his other books, although I do have a couple of his other books on my bookshelf that I will read because I want to. I've heard him bash so much. I kind of want to make a judgment for myself. I want to read them.
That is true. And it's really hard to judge someone or something if you're not really.
Yeah,
try it yourself.
If you haven't read it yourself, you can't really say much about it.
You're just getting on the bandwagon.
Right. They're repeating somebody else's talking points.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be that guy. So I'm going to read, I got Love Wins, and I can't remember the other one now. There's two that I have that I'm going to read, and I'll probably read his new book eventually. What is the Bible?
Yeah.
Something. Have you seen the Babylon Bee article on that?
Yeah.
Like, literally, no, what is it? I don't know. Anyway, it's funny. Yeah. But he's one of those guys, and I think, listening to his more recent stuff, he's gotten off track a little bit, but pretty far. But I do like his writing, and I think it is because he wasn't afraid to step outside of what people expected him to say.
Right.
And that's why I like Velvet Elvis so well.
I think Velvet Elvis is definitely my top book from him. He wrote another book called Sex God.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't have that one, but that's one I also wanted to read.
That's actually really good too.
Is it?
Yeah. It shed some light on, I guess, quote unquote, biblical.
Right, biblical sexuality.
Yeah, and relationships. And so it was interesting. And he had a lot of historical references for like how people in the Jewish faith and the Hebrews handled it and handled marriage, and it was interesting.
Interesting.
I think his ideas of marriage have probably changed since he wrote that. But and we all know how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would venture to say you're right.
Yeah.
Having listened to a little bit of the Robcast podcast, and it just, and this is where I struggled with that. Like, I wanted to, because I liked Velvet Elvis a lot, and I liked the one YouTube video. Yeah, Everything is Spiritual.
Everything is Spiritual,
which you also recommended. That incredible.
Yeah, and
but since I like those things, I tried to listen to the Robcast. I just couldn't get into it. It's so like watered down, pseudo spiritual. Like, there's just no meat to it.
Right.
So it didn't do it for me. But whatever. I'm sure some people like it. It's kind of like Joel Osteen for me, or Joseph Prince, or that. It's very like cookie cutter, but also like watered down. Like it's the sweet, sugary sweet version of it. It's not real. It's not right. But it goes down easy. Yeah.
Well, that's what I tend to look for in the most in writers, and even in preachers. Mm-hmm. And like when I listen to a sermon. Unfortunately, I work during the week. And I work nights, and so I can't be at church a lot of times Wednesday night. And Wednesday night is typically when we do Bible study and
a lot of teaching directed more at the church.
And that's the stuff I like the most.
Yeah, I agree.
And Sundays are more geared towards evangelism, and it's like, when I listen to a sermon on Sunday, like, I feel like I know all this stuff already. It doesn't pertain to me, and so I don't get much out of it.
Right.
I do feel like at our church, though, Pastor Airwood kind of caters to the flock sometimes on Sundays.
Yeah.
And it is nice.
He does more, I think, than a lot of apostolic preachers.
Yeah.
Because I noticed a lot of apostolic preachers, and this is hopefully nobody takes this personally, but it's true. Because I've seen it. I just like to throw it out there. I almost didn't say it, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway.
Yeah.
This is unscripted, obviously. So many apostolic preachers that I've heard over the years just yell and scream a lot and never really say anything. A bunch of noise. They're just adding to the noise. I think Switchfoot put it. Yeah. And they're literally just adding to the noise. They're just being loud, not really saying anything. But Pastor Airwood, he's a dynamic preacher when he needs to be, or when he wants to be. But he's also a very good teacher.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, even though he may be doing one of those evangelistic sermons, I feel like I get more out of it than I would get out of the same sermon by most preachers. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I'd hate to be in a church where I just got yelled at all the time and never got fed.
Right. And, you never grow. And there's been times that I feel like that on a Sunday where I'm just kind of going through the motions. And unfortunately, it's mainly because of my work schedule, because I understand that most of like Wednesday night services are geared towards that. And so, with my work schedule, I can't do that. So I have to pick it somewhere else. So that's why I read. Yeah. And so I said that because I want to look, when I pick up a Christian book, my idea is to, I'm going to get some meat here. I'm going to, I'm going to grow and learn more. So I'm currently reading, actually, and I asked you about it, was Ravi Zacharias's Jesus Among Other Gods.
Yeah, love Ravi Zacharias.
Yeah.
I think that's the only one of his books maybe that I've read. I might have read one more. I can't remember for sure. But I watched him a lot. I listened to his, was it his podcast? Let My People Think?
Yeah.
I've listened to that quite a bit and watched a lot of his YouTube videos and things like that. I love Ravi Zacharias. And that book, it's a little tedious, I think. Are you seeing this at all?
Yeah, it's written kind of in that, in the way he speaks, like you said, and just kind of stilted a little bit. But for the most part, I'm picking it up, and it's not too bad. But
I think it's got a lot of good material in it, and that's what I get from a lot of his videos. Mm-hmm. You got to get past the part where he's not. It's not that he's not charismatic,
right?
But he's just. I don't know. He's Robbie. You just got to listen to him. He's Robbie Zacharias. There's no way to describe it. I mean, once again, love it, but it's not like listening to, T.D. Jakes or something. So.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I like that book. I would recommend it too. I think that's a great one.
Of course, for the apostolics out there and us, anything from David Bernard. Personally, I know it's recommended for pastors and getting the your license,
right?
To read, it's required reading to read I think it's called the Pentecostal Theology series or something.
Yeah, there's something like that, and there's a few of his books in there. I think, like the Oneness of
God and the New Birth and Practical Holiness or something.
Yeah, the Oneness of God, the New Birth. Is it
Searching for Holiness or Practical?
Yeah,
Holiness?
In Search of Holiness. I think it maybe is In Search of Holiness. I know there is also Essential Holiness is an old one. He's written so many books, and I think he's rewritten a lot of them.
Well, specifically talking about the actual, I think there's 4 books maybe that are part of the Pentecostal Theology series or something.
I think the updated one is Practical Holiness, the second look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think every apostolic needs to read those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just those that are planning to be a pastor, but just everyone really needs, especially to understand the faith. And I mean, he's extremely intellectual, and it's got a lot of good insight. And just the scripture references alone, you'll spend half a year probably finishing one book because if you look up all the scriptures along with it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, A History of Christian Doctrine is another one I forgot about.
Yeah.
Very, very good. The spiritual gifts. I would honestly, and this is one of those things, I talked about this with Ann last night because I knew we were going to be talking about this today.
Yeah.
And he's one of those writers, kind of like Ravi Zacharias, even more so, I think. He's very intelligent.
Yeah.
And he's extremely well educated and widely educated. He has like master's and bachelor's degrees in things ranging from what?
Mathematics to like law.
Law? Yeah, maybe some English or something. There were like three or 4 outside of theology. Right. And I think he's working on a doctorate or has it maybe now. Incredibly intelligent. Books are excellent, well researched, but they're not easy reads really. They're kind of stilted. They're written like textbooks almost. Yeah. But I absolutely agree though. Every apostolic should read them. Yeah. Probably all of them actually.
And honestly, it probably get you. I mean, I feel like get you to better understand the faith a little more. Because even if you just grown up in it, there's a lot of crazy ideas out there.
And trust me, I know this.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of them.
So to be grounded in the faith, and no less from our general superintendent,
right?
The leader of our church, our movement.
And I think, and he's well respected. I mean, even if you're ALJC or PAW or whatever, or even Church of God in Christ. I know we have some other people listen to us our podcast, but really all across the board, he's well respected.
Right.
And he does a lot of dialogue with other denominations too. So even in leadership, probably maybe the saints in a lot of churches of other denominations wouldn't have any idea who he is.
Right.
But I'd say the upper leadership in, Baptist organizations and, whatever, they probably know and respect him because they do a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
Definitely. The updated series on, what is it called again? Is Doctrine, Apostolic Doctrine or something like that.
Yeah, Pentecostal Theology.
Pentecostal Theology. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yep.
But it's on, if you go to the Pentecostal Publishing House website, you can find those.
Yeah.
And they're excellent.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about being real, I think, a guy like David Bernard writing that way, obviously, he's being very true to who he is,
Right.
He's very much that intellectual guy, Ravi Zacharias, same thing. And that's totally fine. What I don't like is the guys who write the book that their publisher says is going to make it a big seller, whatever. The subject is going to be a big seller if you write it and if you do it this way. And they do that whole cookie cutter, make sure I have a positive, clean image all the time.
Yeah.
Kind of, and it just, that's what bugs me. And I'm actually reading a book right now. And I'm going to have to look in my Goodreads because I've just read a couple chapters in it. The Post-Church Christian is what it's called. And it's by a guy named Paul Nyquist and his son, Carson Nyquist. And this has been one so far for me, and I've not finished it yet, but it has kind of the first little bit of the book is written by the son, who's a millennial, which, for better or for worse, that's me. I'll just own it right now.
I'm still on the fence on that one. Because I was born in 83.
Well, okay. I've seen some people say 84, but some people say 81, 82.
Right, I know.
So
and
I think you might be.
There's a new category. There's like a subcategory for generation.
I saw a video about that a couple of days ago, actually. Everybody's trying to create these little sub generations so they don't have to be millennial.
Yeah.
Okay. One of these days you'll just own up to it.
Right. Not quite there yet.
Okay. Well, keep working on it. No, but I think I am. I guess I am a millennial because I totally feel like the first chapter is written by the son, the millennial guy. I can totally relate to. Like, it's like he's voicing all my frustration with the church.
Yeah.
And, maybe his is more extreme than mine. I don't know. But it's written by this father and son. And the dad's like a baby boomer. And they're both in ministry and pastor, I think. The dad was a pastor. I don't know. The son may be a pastor too. But it is written it started as a conversation between a father and son at Thanksgiving dinner, I think. Or Thanksgiving holiday. Talking about how many of the millennials are leaving the church, and a lot of this guy's friends had left. And, what were their frustrations? Why? What was the issue? They still loved Jesus, and they wanted to figure out how that worked, considering how frustrated they were with the church. And a lot of that frustration was stuff that I felt in my late teens and early 20s, and I almost left the church because of it. And to be perfectly honest, even in where I am now, where I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I love our church, I still have a lot of the same frustrations with the church.
Right.
And it's really, I can't wait to get into the part where the dad starts talking from the baby boomer's perspective, and because it is a very generational problem.
Yeah.
I think if we were to sum up our generation's problem in the church, it's just that frustration with the church. It's very broad. But there are some particular things, obviously, but it's just broadly speaking, they're frustrated with the church, with what the church, is about, outside of the relationship with Jesus, it's become about, politics. So obviously in our area, it's about, the first conservative, and I think the first chapter is entitled, of this book is titled, The First Conservative Church of, and it's like, that's one of his big frustrations.
I think, you mentioned the frustration with the church. One thing I'm seeing, especially even recently, as in this week, on, with the trend with, no more prayer and was it prayer and thoughts or whatever? Hashtag no prayer and thoughts or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
But I think it stems from, we're tired of talking about it. Let's do something.
Right.
And, so many of my liberal and progressive Christian friends that I have on Facebook, they're on board with this because we're tired of the church standing by and being idle. And they just want the church to do something,
Right. Anything.
Yeah. And
just actually do it instead of just say it.
I mean, it's unfortunate what happened in Florida, and obviously everyone has their gut reactions, and we've talked about it on this podcast many times, with, gun rights and all that stuff. And we're not going to get into it now, but, as Christians, we got the old hat that are still hanging on, that are still, want to keep the status quo.
Right.
And then
defend it to the death too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that is the gospel.
Yeah. And then the millennials are reading the gospel as if, we need to go out and, do something, and,
right.
Radically
love is
change.
action.
Right.
Love is a verb.
Love is a verb. Yeah. They read what, how, the teachings of Jesus and how it kind of contradicts the whole just standing idly by, I suppose.
Right.
And so
the more I read Jesus, like and we did several weeks in a Bible hour at our church where I and a couple other guys taught based on basically just several weeks of the words and actions of Jesus. Like,
actually, I taught.
Yeah, you did.
I taught one of the
lessons. You taught one of
those. Yeah.
Man, to me, going through several weeks of that was like, it was really eye-opening.
Yeah, I mean, when I read the Gospels, I tend to, because I've read them so much and I've been taught the story so much, you tend to kind of gloss over them a little bit. You do. And, every time, you read the parables and you're just kind of like, yeah, I know this. And then you just read through it. Unfortunately, I get this way when I read like Genesis is the same way for me. I know the story so well. I know them by the heart, and it's just hard for me to, because I do read the whole Bible in a year. I do, on you version of the Bible and on the app, and I go through that, but I do it every year, so I know what it says. Right. But it's just like, you tend to gloss over it. You tend to gloss over it in the Gospels too, like I said. Yeah. And so it's nice to kind of just step back, let's dig through it a little bit. And
it is. And something specific like, one thing I learned was that most of the things Jesus taught and the examples he gave personally with what he did are not only different than what we do and teach, but they're actually at odds with it. Right. Like for example, from economically, and we don't want to get into politics too much, but from an economics perspective, I am very, very, very capitalist. Yeah. Like I really am. And I believe that the market works itself out. I'm very much a free market guy. But
sell all your things and give it to the poor,
Doesn't sound very capitalist, does it? So I think economically that's a good policy. And I think that like politically, I have other opinions too. But what has to be more important than all that is that Jesus said, now he didn't say this necessarily for the government or for my business. Right. But he said that for me, if he requires it, and I don't think he requires it of everybody, but if he were to ask me to give up everything I have and give it to the poor, would I do it? If I wouldn't, then my money or whatever is an idol. Right. Or maybe it's just my 5 bookshelves full of books, whatever. I don't have that much money, but I got books, I'm book rich. So maybe that's it. I don't know, whatever. It could be anything. Right. But we love life so much, I don't think that we really understand what Jesus is asking when he says, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. Right.
When I think about that, and I have a lot of stuff, and I can imagine it could bring in a lot of money if I ever sold any of it. But it's like, it's hard for me to part with things.
He's asking two very big things. So first of all, sell all your stuff that you love. Yeah. And I hate to use that word, love, but I mean, when I start trying to get rid of stuff, it hurts. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So get rid of all the junk that you love, and then take all that big pile of money and give it to somebody. Yeah. the poor.
Right. So it's not even like we're holding a garage sale so we can go buy a new washer.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like we're holding a garage sale.
They're giving the money away.
They're giving the money away. Yeah.
Totally different scenario.
Yeah.
Now, I'm one of these guys. And again, you know me. I'm very libertarian, and
right.
I'm not at all the Republican guy like most of my friends are, and I'm definitely not a Democrat. I'm very libertarian in my political views, and I don't feel like the government should be handing out money to everybody. I don't think they should be. I really don't believe in government programs at all, as far as like helping the poor, that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, what I do believe in is the church and the people, the individual people in the church, helping the poor and give. And if the church and Christians operated the way that God intended and the way Jesus taught, we wouldn't need government programs.
Right.
So maybe I'm a little idealistic because I know how people are. People don't step up when they should. I don't step up every time I should.
Yeah.
But that's what God intended, I feel like.
When Jesus instructed the 12 to go out and, he told them not to don't even bring a change of clothes.
Yeah.
And they had no idea where they were going. The Bible doesn't talk about how long they were gone. Maybe they were gone for a couple months, Right. And, just go up to someone's house and say, hey, can I stay here? And,
couch surfing.
Yeah.
Like if I was single, I might do that.
Right.
But, I don't know, though. It's still tough.
It's not being tied down and held on to things. I think those, and God calls certain people to different things. And maybe he calls those certain people to do that kind of stuff. And I guess that's what missionaries are. And
exactly.
But like my thinking though is they had a lot of communal living, and
they were commies.
That's what I'm getting. I didn't want to say it because of the fear of the angry letters and comments we would get.
No, basically they were socialists.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, Jesus stayed out of politics from the government as far as the Roman government went. But he'd really incite things every now and then, whether it was with Pilate when he said, when Pilate was asking him, are you king of the Jews?
Right.
And he would say things like, I can't remember if that's the instance where he said, you said it, not me, or something like that. He'd just say things that kind of.
That's what you say.
Right. Yeah. Or especially the Pharisees, he would always try to get them going. And I thought it was kind of funny, actually.
Right.
But he didn't get involved in like trying to change government.
Right.
But he did get involved as far as trying to make the religious people, and this is mostly where he spent his energy, trying to get the religious people to understand you're way off track.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. This is what this means. This, I saw a post on Facebook last night and I couldn't help myself but get in the middle of it. And somebody, I don't know if you're in this group, it's a UPC Friends and Ministers or something. I don't know what it is. Something kind of group. I don't think it's not sponsored by UPC, but it's a lot of UPC people, a lot of probably ALJC and stuff too. But anyway, somebody posted a picture of a street preacher from Beverly Hills who evidently is a UPC preacher. I don't think he's from Beverly Hills probably. But he preaches in Beverly Hills on the street. He has a shirt on that says Acts 2:38 on the back, and you need to be baptized and all this stuff printed on it. And if somebody made the point, even his shirt with a message that was true, seemed a little aggressive, it came across in a way that would make people want to go the other way instead of, just because it's so aggressive. But then his sign was like, and I'm going to tell you what his sign said. It said, God, what is it? I don't want to say hates. I think he didn't use the word hates. It almost looked like Westboro Baptist guy though.
Wow.
It was like God condemns or something like that. Or no, God sends you to hell. God will send to hell. That's what it was. God will send to hell. And then it said, homos. I'm just repeating what he said. Whores. Sports nuts. That was a kind of interesting one to throw in the mix there. I don't know what that's all about. And then he goes on and on. I mean, the stuff it was, first of all, a lot of it just sounded really crazy. But it was very derogatory. Like the words he used for every person, every category that he listed were really derogatory terms.
Yeah.
And the thing that surprised me the most was how many people were defending him and saying how great that was. And they were supporting it and thinking it was just awesome. And
well, it's the same type of people. No, I mean, no offense, but it's the same type of people that want to build the wall and
well,
kick all the dreamers out. And
yeah, it's a different perspective. It's a different worldview. Like it's a very fearful and angry worldview. I feel like,
right,
and not that, I don't want to get into the whole debate on border security. I think if you're gonna have a border, you should secure it. But I think a lot of those people are very like misguided, have a lot of misguided anger and fear that's really,
not really warranted.
No, it's not. It's misdirected. It's not warranted.
Yeah.
And I told Ann this after the Parkland, Florida shooting. School shooting. And that's a tragedy. It's terrible. We don't want to get into that too much today. And obviously it's awful anytime something like that happens. But I told my wife, I said, the best defense against school shootings is the same as the best defense against terrorism. It's just mathematics. It's probability and statistics. The stats show that you are probably more likely to trip and fall and hit your head on the curb and die, or a deer jump out in front of your car and impale you with his antler through the windshield.
Right.
I mean, it's literally, you're more likely to die from those things than a terrorist attack or a school shooting or a shark attack. And people are deathly afraid of these things, but they just don't happen. I mean, it's a tragedy when it does. I don't want to try to downplay that. But as far as being fearful of it, the chances of it happening to you are right squarely between slim and none.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, it is what it is. But I feel like I tried to express in this Facebook post why what this guy was saying was such a problem. And, it's just not what Jesus did. And the thing is, these people really think that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
And they're like telling me, you need to read up. You better go back and read your Bible. That's exactly what Jesus did. And I'm just thinking, I just read that. And I don't remember that.
Right. What Bible are they reading?
I wonder. Because, King James only. I know because they said it very clearly. But I've read that one too, and it doesn't say that. Unless they just know how to read Middle English, which that brings up another problem.
Well, they're reading the old King James.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Yeah. The real one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I expressed my frustration and tried to help them understand. When Jesus overturned the table, they brought up that. Jesus overturning the tables. And the money changers in the temple are shortchanging people on their currency exchange and taking advantage of the poor people that didn't have the education to know they were getting ripped off.
Right.
That's different. It's in the church. That's happening in the church.
Right.
When he said, "You generation of vipers," he was talking to the religious leaders. He was always doing that with the church. And he was always loving and kind to the sinners because he drew them in. He didn't force them in with a whip,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's frustrating, but all these things are frustrations that I've had with the church.
Sure.
And this book, I think you should read it. I don't know, I haven't finished it, so I can't give a final, recommendation on it, but I think it'd be worth a read because so far I feel like I'm not alone in my frustrations.
Yeah.
And this guy's not apostolic, but obviously this is it's a generational thing,
yeah.
I think, among all denominations. So the post-Christian church, the post-church Christian.
Okay.
The post-church Christian.
I'll check it out.
So yeah, definitely check it out. The other book that I'm currently reading is not a religious book at all, but it's Into the Wild.
Okay.
And it's been interesting. Hasn't kept my interest as much.
Is that the same story that the movie Into the Wild?
Yeah, I think the movie is about based on that book.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guy is interesting. It's just that a lot of what happens in the book is the guy who wrote the story about the guy. Well, obviously the guy died, so he couldn't write a story about himself. Yeah. So you don't really know what he did on his adventures. You just know that he went here and stayed for a while and buried his car in the desert, and then he walked here and hitchhiked to Alaska or whatever. It obviously, lived a lot of life in a few years, but it's probably worth a read. It's there's some pretty interesting stuff in it. It's kind of fascinating to think about someone doing something like that and why they would do it. But anyway, I'm reading that right now. I would say, as far as books I would recommend, I guess we should move on to that probably because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
I have a short list. I'm not going to read them all, but as far as religious books, things along that line, I would say spiritual. Oh boy, what's it called? It's David Bernard, and it's one of his newer ones. Not Spiritual Gifts, the other one. Spiritual Leadership in the 21st Century.
Okay. Yep.
Spiritual Leadership in the 21st Century by David Bernard. I like that one a lot. There's one called Dirty God by Johnny Moore, and it was really good. It's about getting your hands dirty, action, like you said, putting love into action. The Christian Atheist by Craig Groeschel. He's another author that I really like. I think he's pretty honest. He wrote Confessions of a Pastor, I think was the name of the book, and it was really good. But The Christian Atheist I really liked. One that Pastor Airwood preached a sermon from, and I think he actually gave me this book, and it was really good, is When the Game is Over, It All Goes Back in the Box by John Ortberg. Or maybe it's Everything Goes Back in the Box. Anyway, When the Game is Over, It All Goes Back in the Box, John Ortberg. You'll find it. Incredible book, gives you perspective on life. We mentioned Velvet Elvis earlier by Rob Bell, and I did really like that book. I would think, whether or not you agree with it, I would say give it a read. Gods at War, you mentioned earlier, by Kyle Idleman. I've taught from that several times. I would highly recommend that for everybody. And then I'd like to give a couple recommendations that aren't religious books. Because I'm kind of I guess business guy. I like business books. One that changed, it's not a very, I've heard people say this before, it's not a very good book. I don't know that I'd say it's not a very good book. It's probably not a great, really well written book, but it's absolutely life-changing book, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Okay. And he's not really, he'll tell you, he's not really a writer. He wasn't good in school. But it's really kind of paradigm shifting, and it definitely changed my view on a lot of things. On the other end of the spectrum is Financial Peace by Dave Ramsey. That's very good. That's
very good. Yeah, I've read Total Money Makeover as well.
Total Money Makeover is really good too. Those books probably interchangeable. I read both. They're great, but Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey teach completely different perspectives. Yeah. I think they're both valid. But also, one I'm going to recommend, and I'm going to give you a caveat here. It's got some language in it. And if you read the book and like it, and you go to watch his videos, you're going to hear a lot more language. So I would say definitely read the book. But Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk was a very good business book. Very down to earth kind of guy, again, not really, it's actually a surprisingly good writer, really, but very down to earth. And if you're a business, and if you like business at all, marketing, Seth Godin's books are all great, but Tribes, I love Tribes by Seth Godin. And then I've mentioned before how Night by Elie Wiesel, I think is how you pronounce his name, and Hiroshima by John Hershey, and The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass. Those books really shaped like how I view humanity. And
I've recently read the Frederick Douglass book.
I think it's a must read, really. Right, I would say
it is really good.
And that's pretty much it. I mean, I've got some other, I can give you other recommendations, but that's pretty much that's my main list. Probably.
Maybe we'll do like a blog post or something.
I think we should do a blog post with a list.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your go-to highly recommended books?
Okay, if you're pursuing ministry and specifically pursuing ministry in the Apostolic Church, I highly recommend We Preach.
I've not read that yet.
By Jerry Jones.
Yeah, I really want to read that.
It's very good. And the other one is... I
have to be honest, the reason I didn't buy that when it first came out was I didn't like the title. The title was I'm not sure I know what he's going for, but it didn't hit me, you know what I mean? But I'm like, it's Jerry Jones, I gotta buy it.
It's a good book on sermon prep.
It is, that's what it is pretty much, okay.
And
I love Jerry Jones, and I gotta pick it up.
And so we had General Conference in Indianapolis a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so I think he just released it that at that conference.
Oh, right.
He had his book there. He was actually book signing, and I actually got it, and he signed the book for me. But so I'm glad I read it. The other preaching book I highly recommend, and this is just, it's a good book if you want to know the Pentecostal preachers a little bit more. And so it's called Life Preaching.
Okay.
It's by
Mark Jordan. Is it Mark Jordan? No, it's not. No.
Jonathan McClintock.
I've seen that book, I want to say, but I've not. What is it again? Life Preaching?
Life Preaching.
Yeah, I saw that. Is that available from the publishing house?
Yeah.
Pentecostal Publishing House.
Yeah.
I've seen it in their ads and stuff, but.
And it's just various stories of pastors and how they got the call to preach.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's a lot like, for Indiana, we have the Indiana District Men's Conference. You go to the breakfast.
Oh, yeah, those are always great.
Yeah, and you actually get to hear one-on-one kind of personal stories from the pastor.
I think Scott Graham did that one year. Yeah. It was really great.
Scott Graham actually wrote a chapter in this book. So it's actually it's by Jonathan McClintock, but he's more like the editor. It's actually other pastors have contributed to it, and so it's actually really good. So
that's interesting.
Those two I definitely recommend if you're pursuing ministry. General Christian books, I've read. I love Francis Chan, and Crazy Love and Erasing Hell are probably my two favorite books by him.
And I have a couple of his books. I've never finished one though. I've started it, and for whatever reason I got distracted. I never finished it, but it's still on my Crazy Love, still on my shelf.
Yeah, Crazy Love is excellent. Erasing Hell was kind of a rebuttal, if you will, to Rob Bell's Love Wins.
I wondered. I figured it was. I assumed that, but I never read it.
But it's still good.
Actually, I never read either one of those. And I think I have them both, but I never read them.
Yeah. Of course, I also like, and he's another kind of stilted writer, but he's highly intelligent, is Timothy Keller.
Oh, yeah.
The Reason for God.
Okay.
It's an excellent book. Especially if you're into apologetics and learning how to defend the faith.
Right.
I definitely recommend that. Of course, C.S. Lewis.
Oh my gosh!
I can't say enough about him.
I didn't even know where to start. Really, so I didn't.
Of course, Mere Christianity.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah, and I think some of his one-off books, like The Four Loves and like The Problem of Pain, The Great Divorce.
I like The Four Loves. I've never read the other two you mentioned, but.
And then, of course, Screwtape Letters, if you enjoy fiction too, I think, in Christian fiction.
Yeah. Well, and Chronicles of Narnia is for kids, but sure. I'll read it again. It's great. So,
let's see. Also,
I actually have a book called The Quotable Lewis, and it's just a whole book of C.S. Lewis quotes.
Okay,
and it's really great. I've used that quite a bit.
I have another one on the bookshelf of C.S. Lewis or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It's like his from the personal library of C.S. Lewis, I think is what
cool.
it is. But it's actually just his influence. Like someone had compiled a bunch of some of his poetry, some of it's scripture, some of it's just excerpts from different
the stuff that he's read. Yeah.
And so what's on his bookshelf? Someone compiled a book about it. It's pretty good. Oh, there's one other here. Oh, A.W. Tozer.
Yeah.
The Pursuit of God and The Pursuit of Man are really good. And actually, I tell you, I read a biography of A.W. Tozer, And I highly enjoyed that too. I don't know. I tend to like biographies a lot more, especially pastors, because I like it. To me, unfortunately, we tend to put them up on a pedestal, and
exactly. That's part of the problem again.
Yeah.
With not being honest, church not being honest,
and we tend to have put an image on them, and
now we have expectations that aren't realistic,
right. And so it's nice to go back and read. And like I said, the Stephen Curtis Chapman book was the same way. Biographies are nice to read because you kind of understand that they're just human and, the lives that they led. And
we get a sense of who they are and why.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, this list can go on forever, but just one more. This book really kind of shaped me. The Man I Am Today was called Wild at Heart by
I have that
John Eldredge.
I have that and not read it.
Yeah, it's a book I've given away. I've really enjoyed it, and it's really, really, really good book to know how to be a man, but a Christian man.
Right.
And we can be a manly man, go out and conquer the world, but still be loving and emotional and
I think whatever your personality is,
right.
If being Christ-like isn't a foundational part of that, then you're not going to be effective.
Right. Sure. So these are just a few of our recommendations. The list is exhaustive, obviously, and like I said, I think we should put a blog post or do some kind of list.
Yeah, definitely, we'll do that. We'll do a blog post about it and do a list. Maybe we can do like a top 10 list, or something like that from each of us. Yeah. And I'll put that on. I'll do one on my blog. You can do one on your blog, and then we'll put them on the our page too. Yeah. So compiled, So look forward to that. I think we're going to have some really interesting interviews coming up. I'll throw that out there. We have, and I won't tell you who all the people are yet, but a couple of three, I think, apostolic authors, a couple who have new books either out or coming out, a guy who's not apostolic, but who's a music industry guy, Christian music industry guy from, late or probably early 2000s, really influential in Christian rock scene. And has a book coming out, and he's going to be on our podcast coming up really soon. Looking forward to that. Again, he's not apostolic, but he is very much, actually his whole thing now is about being spirit-led. Yeah. And it'll be interesting. Very interesting conversation, I'm thinking, with him. So looking forward to the next couple months, probably, with a lot of interviews. And then I think we're going to start a doctrine series.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm looking forward to that as well. And we've kind of, earlier this year, we kind of sat down and come up with a list of topics, episodes, but we have several series in the future. And
they're still open to, a series that we might have 10 lessons or 10 things for, but we might do 5. Yeah. But if you have a great suggestion, we might throw a 6th one in there or whatever.
Absolutely. And
we would love to hear feedback.
Definitely.
If you'd like to join the conversation, you can find us on social media at 2 Pentecostals. That's on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also check our website, 2pentecostals.com, for show notes, news, and links to Bryce and I's blogs. Also, it really helps us out if you can go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, hopefully 5 stars, and leave a review. It really helps us get found in the rankings, and we truly appreciate it. See you next time on 2 Pentecostals and a Microphone.